AutoSys Workload Automation installation in single server mode on Windows with an Oracle database. In this module, we will learn how to install AutoSys Workload Automation in single server mode on Windows using an Oracle database and validate the installation. The following are prerequisites when installing AutoSys Workload Automation Server. Log in as a user with Windows Administrators Group privileges. Check whether the IP address returned by the hostname command matches the IP address returned by the nslookup command. Confirm that the computer where you plan to install the AutoSys Workload Automation Server can connect to the database using one of the database Oracle client utilities. The database must be created before the installation. A user with database administrator permissions is required to create AutoSys database objects during installation. An instance of CAEM must be installed and accessible. The IAMadmin administrator user password is required during installation. If there is not enough space in the temp directory, set the IATempter environment variable to configure the temp location to a path with sufficient space. For more detailed information, please refer to the AutoSys Workload Automation documentation. In this video, we will install AutoSys on a Microsoft Windows environment with an Oracle database. Before starting the installation process, it is essential to ensure there is connectivity from the AutoSys server to the database server and the CAEM server. We must also validate that we can access the database from the AutoSys server. For this, we need to have installed and configured the Oracle client. Additionally, we will require a database administrator user to create the database objects and the CAEM administrator user to register AutoSys. Also, we must have downloaded the software and validated it with the checksum. Next, we will perform all these validations. First, let's validate the connection with the servers involved: the CAEM server and the database server. We ping the CAEM server and get a reply. We ping the database server, and we get the reply expected. We have connectivity to the CAEM server and the database server. Next, we validate that CAEM port 5250 and Oracle port 1521 are open. We enter a TNC command followed by the CAEM server name and port 5250, and we get a successful response. Now we validate the database port 1521 is open, also with the TNC command. And again, we get a successful response. To validate the connection to the database, we must know the alias of the database. This information is usually provided by the DBA. Let's locate it. We go to the Oracle Database Client installation. In the tnsnames.ora file, we can see the alias is AE121 It is on Server 2, Windows, and uses port 1521. We are going to validate we can connect using the alias. We enter the TNS ping command followed by the alias. And we get a successful response. We can connect to the database using the alias. The next validation we do is to log into the database using a database administrator account. We use the SQL+ command, with the administrator user credentials and the alias. We have logged into the database and made sure that we can connect to the database. Now we log into CAEM to validate the CAEM administrator user. We will need this user later to register the AutoSys we are installing. Just logging CAEM with the IAM admin administrator user is enough. With this, we have confirmed the installation requirements are fulfilled. The next step is to validate the software has been downloaded successfully. We will use the certutil utility to validate the AutoSys ISO file checksum value against the corresponding value in Broadcom's provided PDF. We will validate the AutoSys Workload Automation for Windows DVD using this checksum value. We enter the certutil command, followed by #file, and the ISO file name we will use to install AutoSys. A value is generated, and it must match the value in the PDF file. We copy the PDF checksum value to compare it against the generated value. Both values match. The DVD ISO file was downloaded successfully. With this step completed, we are ready to start the AutoSys installation. Now, let's install AutoSys from the DVD. Execute the install program as administrator and wait for the launch of the program. Once the install program launches, the installation wizard screen appears. We click on Next. We accept the terms of the license agreement and select Next. Here, we have two options: install the product and the option to create a database schema in case it is required. In this case, we select the first option to install the product and click Next. We have two installation options, Express and Custom. The Express option presents us with fewer installation options. With the Custom option, we can further configure the installation according to our requirements. We are going to use the Java bundled with the DVD installation. Select Next. Here we have the AutoSys components to install. The components are the scheduler, the application server, the REST Web Service API, the client and the agent, the software development kit, and the secure socket adapter. Select Next. These are the installation paths for AutoSys and the shared components. Select Next. This is the name of the AutoSys instance. In this case, we are going to create the AC instance. This option is to encrypt the data transmitted between the managers and the agents. In this demo, we will use the default key for instance-level data encryption. However, this is not recommended in a production environment. For production environments, the best practice is to select the option to encrypt data using a user-defined key. We leave the option to use the instance-level data encryption values also for the agent. Click Next. For this installation, we are not going to activate the FIPS 142 option. Click Next. Now, we select the database we want to use, Oracle in this case. And the following options appear. For the authentication method, we will use password with transparent network substrate, TNS. But you can choose the option that best suits your installation. This option is to install a dual event server. We will not install it at this time. We select the option to create the database schema. For storage management, we select Oracle Managed Files. You can choose the option most appropriate for your installation. And select the option to create the table space, database user, and roles. Click Next. Here, we must provide the information to access the Oracle database. We enter the TNS alias name we have verified previously, the database host server name, and the Oracle home client directory in this server. It automatically fills in the TNS admin directory. We are going to connect to the AE121 Win alias on the Server 2 Windows database server. Select Next. Here, we enter an Oracle username granted with the roles mentioned on the screen. In this case, we use the AutoSys user. Click Next. This information is to create the Oracle Database Schema admin. We leave the default user and enter the password the user will have. Select Next. Now, we enter the table space name for the AutoSys database. Click Next. We enter the database username for AutoSys. We leave the default AutoSys and enter the password the user will have. Select Next. We enter the CAEM server name, the administrator user, IAMadmin, and its password. Click Next. Here, we leave the scheduler auxiliary port by default. We do not select the high availability option. We leave the default option to install the primary scheduler. We click Next. In this part, we enter the application server name, the communication port, and its auxiliary. We leave the server name by default. It is the server where we are installing. We leave the port and auxiliary port also by default. Select Next. We leave the default port 9443 for REST Web API connections. Select Next. This is the agent configuration. We leave the name of the agent by default, but it can be changed later if needed, and the port the agent uses to communicate. It can be multiplexed. We can also activate SNMP on the agent. Select Next. We leave the ports list by default as 9000. This list will include the application server ports that will interact with this agent. We have just one application server at the moment. Here, we select when each component will start. Select the Start Post-Installation option if we want either of these components, scheduler, application server, agent, or REST web service, to start once the installation completes. Or by default, we leave the option to start all the components after the system startup. This section is to activate the product. We select the Yes option. Enter the company domain, last part of your company email address, your Broadcom site ID, and an optional internal company identifier. Here we can select if we want to send Broadcom telemetry data about product license usage. We leave the default yes to send telemetry data. Also, you can optionally define a proxy server to send usage data. The AutoSys scheduler sends telemetry data to Broadcom through port 443. You can secure this port by using a proxy server to allow only authenticated access. Now we get the installation summary. Here's where the AutoSys installation logs will be created. And here is where the agent logs will be created. This is the type of installation. In this case, it will be a fresh custom installation. We are going to use the JRE that comes with the product. These are the components to install: the scheduler, application server, REST web service, client, agent, SDK, and secure socket adapter. These are the installation paths where each component will be installed. The AutoSys instance name ACE. The instance level data encryption. If FIPS 142 will be activated. The database properties. The AutoSys database user. Security with CAEM. The scheduler properties, we can see that it will start automatically at system startup. The application server properties. The REST web services properties. The agent properties. The SSA socket adapter. And the product activation and telemetry. Now we are ready to start the installation. We click on Install to begin the installation. The AutoSys installation was completed successfully. The screen shows where the installation logs are. We save the REST web service URL to configure the web UI component later. We click on Done to close the installer. Now, we are going to test the installation. First, let's go to the installation logs on the server. Here we have the AutoSys installation logs. This is the installation detail log with the messages generated during the installation process. In case of an error or doubt about the installation, we can use this log to get more information. This is the installation summary with all the options we selected to install. This is the Web Components installation log. Now let's review the services. Let's open the AutoSys command prompt. We enter the command chk_auto_up to verify which components are active. There are no components active. We are going to start the services. We open the AutoSys administrator and go to Services to start each service. First, the application server. Second, the scheduler. Then, the web server. And the agent. We go to the AutoSys command prompt and enter again the command chk_auto_up with the option R, followed by 111 to know the status of the application server, event server, and scheduler. We can see the connection with the database was successful. The application server and the primary scheduler are running. Now, let's look at the logs. Let's see the scheduler log. We execute the AutoSys log command with the E option. It detected the server and included it as a machine. Let's open another command prompt. We run the AutoSys log command with S option to open the application server log. The application server is running and there are no errors. We open the event log again and keep it open. Now, let's check the machines with the autorep command. We already have the first one there, which is the server, and the information about the agent. We have communication with the agent. Let's see the jobs. There are no jobs defined. We're going to include a job. We use the JL command. We enter the job name. In the machine where the job will run, this machine. The job has been created successfully. Let's check it again. Here we have the job. Let's run the job using the send event command. The job failed because of the user. What do we have to do? We run AutoSys_secure utility to manage the users. We are going to create a user. On Windows, we need to do this for each user executing jobs in the agents. We enter administrator as username. The user host or domain. And the user's password. Because this user will log in on this machine to execute the job. We check the user was created. With this, the job was completed successfully. We exit the security utility. If we execute again the autorep command, we can see now its status is successful. We have completed the installation of AutoSys on a Windows server with an Oracle database. In this module, we have learned prerequisites and considerations for AutoSys Workload Automation installation, how to install AutoSys Workload Automation in single server mode on Windows with an Oracle database, how to locate the AutoSys Workload Automation installation logs, and how to validate the installation.